This evening, you're going to hear from someone who is, I must say, a specialist in resilience because of the extraordinary things she does in her life. I'm very pleased to welcome Melanie Shudowski. We are part of the ICF Switzerland, the Swiss chapter of the International Coaching Federation. My name is Saba Imru Mathieu. I'm the lead on this project. I'm super thrilled to be offering this possibility for international workers and organizations together with a whole bunch of other coaches. And so without further ado, now I would like to give the floor to Melanie to maybe say a little bit more about herself that I haven't been able yet to present to our audience.
Thank you very much, Saba, for the short introduction. I'll just share my screen so we can start. So thank you, everyone, for being here. My name is Melanie Shudowski. I'm a Transformational Leadership Coach. And in this webinar, we will be discussing breaking boundaries, so embracing growth zones for resilience and confidence. Now, before I start on a short introduction on myself, I would first like to say that this is a topic very close to my heart. And the power of mindset transformation, through embracing growth zones, can have such a powerful positive impact in our lives that I would like to take you on this introductory journey this evening. So you can also move towards resilience and confidence, either for yourself or for your team and your environment. Now for this webinar, it would be good if you have a pen and paper or something to jot down your thoughts. And at the end of this webinar, you will receive from me 3 worksheets. So you can also work on this topic after the webinar. Yes. And if you have any questions, please jot them down as well. I will be answering them together with Saba at the end of this webinar. All right. So I'd first like to start with this quote. So what we achieve inwardly is what changes our outward reality. And that's also a quote I'm carrying since I was a child up until this very day. I've seen this with my clients, but also with me personally and professionally. And just as a short introduction about my background, already as a young teenager, I spent a lot of time in Africa and Asia, and I decided to become a nurse. So that's where my professional career started. But I soon noticed that exploring my comfort zone, exploring my fears, uncertainty, provided me with many more opportunities. So I studied international development, global health masters. I was lucky to have many different kind of positions throughout the world with very diverse organizations. And every time again, I discovered when I move outside of my comfort zone, I embrace the fears, I start to learn something new and new opportunities arise. And in times of challenges, I noticed because I went through these phases again and again, it built my resilience and my confidence that although I would face challenges, I was sure that I could take these challenges on, that I would bounce back even stronger. And that's also something which plays a huge part in my personal life. As Saba briefly mentioned, I'm also a mountaineer. I come from the Netherlands originally, so I grew up below sea level, and I would have never thought that I would scale the world's highest mountains. So my background actually is the Mont Blanc. That was my first mountain climbing I did at high altitude. And even there, I explored my boundaries. I embraced my fears. I acquired new skills, and I was able to go on expeditions in Nepal. So I would love to take you now on this journey together. Enough about me. So let's move to the next exercise. We will dive straight in with the mindset quiz. Now, write down or jot down the number that is most applicable to you according to these different sentences. Try to answer as honestly as possible. Your score won't be shared here. It's just for yourself, and we will be coming back to your score throughout this webinar. Yeah, so I will give you 2 minutes to go through this exercise, write down the numbers and add them up so you have your score. Yeah, so I'll give you 2 minutes. I hope you were all able to jot down your score. So let's move to the score. Now you filled out your mindset score, which reveals whether you're more towards a fixed mindset or maybe more towards the growth mindset. So remember your mindset score. We will be coming back to this later on. Now, what will we discover this evening? So we will look at the different zones so you have a better understanding of them. We will explore mindset transformation, what that exactly entails. We will look at escaping the comfort and fear zone, and eventually moving into the growth zone for resilience and confidence. And we'll also look at some strategies which you can apply to discover each of these steps. Now, first, we need to understand the different zones. So we have a nice image here with 4 circles. So first you see the comfort zone. As you can see, it's relatively small. It's an area we know very well. We need little effort. And sometimes it also prevents us to expand our horizon because we are in our own familiar world. Then the next zone is the fear zone. The fear zone, when we are in that zone, we often feel some discomfort, maybe a low self-confidence, a bit scared, uncertain. And it asks from us to face challenges outside of our usual experience. And actually, that's where the magic happens. That's what we would say. The next zone is the learning zone. In the learning zone, we really push ourselves to try new things. And this may feel uncomfortable, but it's okay to feel that fear, because when you feel something while you're learning something new, a switch happens in the brain and you actually learn better. The last circle is the growth zone, and here the fears abide. You feel confident, you have a clear vision forward, and you have this feeling as if everything is possible. Now, notice how the comfort and the fear zones are the smallest circle. And this is a nice visual which shows you how the comfort and fear zone limits our future outlook. The same accounts for the growth zone. The growth zone still encompasses comfort and fear. So it's a big circle, but it still encompasses comfort and fear, which means going through the zones is not a linear process. You will be experiencing in your life that you go through the zones. Now write in the chat or write down for yourself. Think of one example where you thought something impossible, but discovered it to be very doable. So maybe there was a situation where you would prefer to stay in the comfort zone or where you were a bit uncertain, but then you did it anyway and you discovered, oh, but I can do this. It was maybe a bit scary, but I can do it. So I just give you a couple seconds to think about this question. Now, the view you adapt for yourself profoundly affects how you lead your life. Now, this is not a positive or a negative sentence. It just is the way it is. Now, it's important to be aware if you consciously decide to stay in your comfort zone, for example, at work, because other areas of your life are moving a lot, or some areas of your life are very uncertain, then it's okay to have a place where you can retreat, to have an anchoring feeling, and that is your comfort zone. But for example, if you procrastinate on the presentation you really need to do, but because you have the mindset or fear that you can't do it, then that determines how that area of your life presents itself. So it's either doing something, being aware of staying in the comfort zone, or moving outside of it. Now, let us explore mindset transformation. So you did the quiz in the beginning, and that can be very helpful to be aware of your mindset, because it can be very powerful if you make conscious decisions about what and how to do things in life, and whether you are unlocking that potential. Yes, we will be discovering that in the next part, what that means exactly. But let's have a first look at the fixed mindset versus the growth mindset. So you have the fixed mindset. So from a fixed mindset, we would say that's just how you were born. You can't really do anything about it. And if you approach situations or activities from a fixed mindset, that would mean that either you fail in that situation or experience, or you succeed. And from a fixed mindset, it also needs to be with a certain speed. Like if you do not succeed immediately, you would see that as a failure. And people would also seek approval from others, how they did. So those are characteristics of a fixed mindset. Now, a growth mindset is really that you can improve on any quality as long as you put in the effort, as long as you acquire a new skill. And the process is more important than the end result. So from a growth mindset, even though a situation or experience might not be 100% perfect or according to your expectations, you can take a step back and you can reflect for yourself, okay, but what did I learn from this situation? What can I take away in the next opportunity? And it's also about allowing yourself time to grow. So again, it's not about succeeding or failing, but rather what can you learn from a situation? Now, I'm going to ask you a question. And before I do that, I would like to provide some examples from a fixed versus a growth mindset, because often we have the idea or feeling that we are in a growth mindset, but we also have our own beliefs, and sometimes they are a bit hidden or not lit, and that makes us think that we are moving quite well within the growth zone, but actually we still have quite some fixed mindsets there. So from a fixed mindset, an example, gives up in the face of an obstacle, sees an obstacle as the limit of own abilities. And from a growth mindset, you would rather see the obstacle as a part of the process, and that you know that all problems have solutions, even if you can't think of the solution at that very moment. Another example is about the success of others. So if someone is performing really well or has a beautiful LinkedIn post or an excellent performance review, from a fixed mindset, a person could think, it's not fair that the other person is succeeding and I am not. Now, from a growth mindset, it would mean that you look at the other person, oh, what can I learn from his or her success? And as a last example, from a fixed mindset, that it could be that a person is less motivated to put in the extra effort to move through the comfort and fear zones. And from a growth mindset is really that you see the effort as the main ingredient of success. Now, a question for you. You can write in the chat a yes or a no as an answer, but also an example, maybe, either what you feel like sharing. And it can also be challenging sometimes or frustrating to think of an example. And sometimes just nothing comes up because it could be something new to think about our beliefs from a fixed and a growth mindset. So try to answer this first question for yourself. So can you think of a time you faced an important opportunity or challenge with a fixed mindset? Just to give an example, maybe from my personal life, when I first climbed the Mont Blanc and I saw Swiss people climbing an ice wall, and I thought, well, I'm from the Netherlands, how will I ever learn to do ice climbing? And now, several years later, I'm just one of the Swiss people doing ice climbing. So that was my belief and the fixed mindset that I couldn't do it. So maybe you have some examples here for yourself. So what is really important to realize is that the comfort and fear zones are not bad things. So just like the learning and growth zone, each zone consists of the other. So it's not a linear process, and we'll have to face and embrace fear and learning again and again through our lives. But the comfort zone can be an important place in one area of your life when another area is changing. Yes. What is also important to know about fear, fear in our bodies from a physiological perspective travels throughout our body. So although fear is actually speaking from the body, a very small part, it's just a chemical reacting in the brain, fear has the power to expand within our body. Now, with each of us, we experience fear in different places, but it can be so powerful, this expanding, that we experience the fear as something really big. That's why it's important now to look at some strategies, how you can move towards the edge of your comfort zone and how you can deal with fear or uncertainty or low self-confidence. Before we go there, it's important to know what is your place for anchoring. What is your comfort zone where you can go back to when you feel insecure or when other areas in your life are moving? So you may write it down in the chat, the first question. So what comfort zone provides you with an anchor? So where do you feel, I can take a step back, I don't need to do any effort, I can reflect for myself, or anything which fits for yourself? Thank you for sharing that. Learning, constant, yeah, that helps a lot. Maybe also for yourself, the second question, what would you like to do, but of which you feel that uncertainty is holding you back? You can just make a mental note to think about that after the webinar. So let's look at some strategies on how you can move towards the edge of the comfort zone and embrace fear. So there are 4 strategies for stepping out of your comfort zone and overcoming your fear zone. Now, again, physiologically, there's no difference between anxiety and excitement. Like both entail a stress response, but whether that response is perceived as positive or negative, that has to do with our mindset, how we label stress. So a good thing could be to reframe stress to eustress. Eustress means positive stress. So you see here, move the mouse. So in your growth zone, you have positive stress. You feel you can do anything. You're confident. You're in the flow, as some would say. If you're in your comfort zone, you don't feel really that stress. You don't have that strong of an urge to do something. Now, it's important to know where your comfort zone lies in case you're moving towards the hyperstress or the distress. Yes, it's also good to be aware of the growth zone. Now, I can mention an example about this. I always have a period within a year that I'm only moving within the growth zone, and that makes me to take on challenges because it feels like everything is flowing and I can do anything, so to say. But what happens when we take on too many things at once? Although we're in the growth zone, we start to feel hyper stress and at some point even distressed. So it can be really helpful to reflect for yourself, okay, where is my comfort zone? In what activities or what areas of my life do I experience the growth zone? And when do I cross that boundary that it becomes too much? So that is the first strategy. The second strategy is understanding neuroplasticity. Maybe some of you have heard of this word. It means that when you step towards the edge of your comfort zone and you go through the fear zone and learning something new, when you do this process repeatedly, your brain will train itself. Now, Monica, you also mentioned that briefly, learning new things. That's really that you build your brain muscle, because your brain is a muscle. That's why this brain is so happy with the weights. If you do something repeatedly and you gain small wins for yourself, your brain, your neural pathways will rewire. That's scientifically proven. So if you're anxious about something or uncertain, for example, giving that speech or providing a presentation or doing a conflict conversation at work, if you repeatedly put yourself in a situation like that, you acquire new skills to go about it. It will change the neural pathways, and the situations or experiences you first thought of something negative, scary, or something that gives you anxiety will start to change. And the more you repeat doing that, the more the rewiring will be fixed. So again, for example, with my ice climbing, I was scared to death the first time putting those ice screws in, but I repeated that, taking small wins, so only climbing 2-3 meters above the ground. But those small wins really made a difference in my brain and for my mindset. And that's the same in every area of our life. Now, the third strategy is prioritizing. Again, you have heard me saying this repeatedly, occupying the comfort zone isn't always bad. I'm saying that every time because we often feel like, oh, we need to grow, we need to learn new things. Yes, that's important, but it's also very important to know where you have your anchoring. So, for example, it's okay to stay in your guitar playing comfort zone, but it's in the long run not okay to don't do anything, for example, about a work position where you feel bored and you don't get any energy. So the point here is to really identify bottlenecks and reflect on areas of your life where staying in the comfort zone does you more harm than good, and then focus on one goal at a time. And that is where coaching can be really helpful, or reflecting for yourself. And the fourth step, it's about taking small steps. So especially, in organizations, but also in this modern world, we have the feeling like we need to do it immediately well, to 100% perfect. But it's about the progress. Yes, it's not about immediate success, because if you keep that in mind, that your brain is a muscle, it needs practice to stay. If you would have a one-off success, it is scientifically proven that that experience stays less in your body, in your brain, than when you repeatedly take small steps. Yes, that's more sustainable in the long run. So really fostering that self-awareness. So deliberately thinking about, okay, where is my comfort zone boundary? Where do I experience fear or insecurity? And taking small steps, just practicing, acquiring new skills, learning something new. Take small steps. And if you discover these boundaries, of each zone, it will make the entire process towards the growth mindset as smooth as possible. Taking small steps really works for me. Yes, indeed. So it's much more sustainable to take those small steps than saying, I need to do this immediately right upon the first time. So briefly summarized, you can take a screenshot of this, keep it as a background, as a reminder, put it on your laptop or your phone. If you repeatedly go through these 4 strategies, it will help you immensely moving out of your comfort zone and embracing fears or uncertainty and moving into the growth zone. Yes. Now, a question. You can share it in the chat or just write it down for yourself to think about it later. Think of one recent example where you can be proud that you stepped outside of your comfort zone. I'm curious what you will say here. And if you don't feel comfortable sharing it in the chat, then just think about it for yourself. And what is the zone that most of us stay within all the time? Yeah, so it is scientifically proven that as a human being, we prefer to stay in the comfort zone because that's also our intuition from million years ago, that we remain within the boundaries that we know, because that's where we can survive. So the comfort zone, we stay in that zone most of the time, which of course does not mean for everyone. Everyone has their own experience of what each zone means to them. Hopefully this answers your question. Studies outside of my comfort zone. Very good. Yeah. And you will notice the more you move towards the edge of your comfort zone, the more you will discover what's actually possible. And you also become aware, oh, wait a minute, what skills, what knowledge do I already have? Where can I build onto what I already have and expand from there? So a lot of things happening when you are between the comfort and the fear zone. Like I said in the beginning, that's where the magic happens. Thank you for sharing your insights. So let's move to the last part. So we have explored the comfort and fear zone. And to grow your resilience and confidence is essential to explore your boundaries repeatedly, like what we discussed before. So let's have a look how this works. So here you see 4 circles: comfort zone exploration, mindset transformation, that's what we discussed, resilience and confidence. Now, if you are aware of the edge of your comfort zone, so where you're starting to feel unease or maybe insecure, and you know your mindset, whether you're geared more towards a fixed or a growth mindset, you can then start to deliberately increase your resilience and confidence. So the zones and mindset transformation are interconnected with confidence and resilience, because you can imagine if you're in your comfort zone and you know, I have a fear, I feel uncertain, for example, if I have to give a presentation in front of many people, if you move towards that edge and you make your mindset shift from a fixed to a growth mindset, you are aware that it's most important to take that small step to experience, for example, speaking in front of an audience. Reflect upon that. Okay, what can I take away from this experience for the next time? Where can I improve a skill? Is there a course, or can I talk with someone who has a lot of experience with presenting? So you can imagine if you go through that steps, that will provide you with confidence because you create those small wins. And again, rewiring the neural pathway. So the more you practice, the more confidence you will have, and your resilience grows, because resilience means you can bounce back in periods of challenges or uncertainty, because you know you have the tools, you have the mindset to go through challenges or through fear. So what can you do to really grow the confidence and your resilience? So how can you build your confidence and resilience through a growth mindset? Now, like I said before, going through fear, going through uncertainty forms the foundation for building your brain muscle. Because as soon as you experience something new, the neural pathways start to work. Yeah, so the key ingredients for building your brain muscle, building confidence and resilience, there are 4 main areas. So first, learning from mistakes. That's really important. So a mistake isn't about failing or succeeding. It is, okay, what did I do and what do I learn from this? The second one is improving or reacquiring skills, what we mentioned before. The third is facing challenges in an intentional way. So instead of thinking, this challenge, I can't get through this. How will I be able to handle this? You can really take a step back, for example. Yes, you went through anxiety, a challenge, a difficult situation. If you take a step back, remove yourself for a second from the situation and allow yourself the time to really think about that challenge. So being intentional how you respond to challenges already makes a very big difference for growing your confidence and your resilience. And the fourth, I call the struggle plan. So what I often do with clients, if there are areas in your life or maybe just specific activities at work where you have difficulties or where you experience that you are in this fear zone, you're not sure how you can go about a certain activity or challenge, is to create a struggle plan. So what we would do is that you look at behaviors where you can rely on. For example, just to mention, providing a presentation in front of a big audience. If you feel that fear is expanding within yourself, for example, let's say 10 minutes before you need to give that presentation, you can then start to think, okay, what behaviors can I rely on which will help me go through the fear? So an example, when we think about this giving presentation in front of a big audience, could be breathing exercises before, or making a big expression, or maybe images of a smile, of a strong brain, anything like behaviors or tools that can help you to move through this fear zone. Yeah, so these are the 4 strategies that can help you to build your resilience and also grow your confidence. So now we come back to the quote we had in the beginning. So what we achieve inwardly is what changes outward reality. Now, although this was an introductory webinar on this topic, it's very broad and vast, and for everyone, the zones mean something different. But I really hope I could take you on this journey, and that you could also sense that what you achieve inwardly is also what changes your outward reality. So how you go about challenges or situation or areas in your life really determines how that will look like in your reality. And that I witness every time again with my clients and in team development programs. And what is really important to know is that we have the choice over our mindsets. We have the choice how to approach our work, but also our relationships. our life. So discovering and exploring our boundaries and learning through that process really paves the way to leading our lives purposefully with resilience and confidence. And again, it's not a linear process moving through these zones. We will experience this process throughout our lives. But it's about repeatedly and with awareness discovering where your boundaries are and also where your resources are. For all of you, I'll be sharing here in the chat 3 worksheets, so you can, work on it on your own to gain a little bit more clarity on your comfort zone. So there are different questions. It's a PDF format. You can just type it in as you go. So I hope that will help you also, either for yourself or with your colleagues, with your team, to work on a growth mindset. So I will share that with you now in the chat. And thank you very much for joining. Although I couldn't see you, I could read a bit here in the chat. Thank you very much also for your responses. Yes, so we now have some time for your questions. I'll be happy to answer them, or if you would like to share your comments, happy to hear them as well. Thank you for the hearts and the clapping. That builds confidence as well.
Thank you very much, Melanie. And this webinar has been so interesting and really fascinating. You gave us really concrete examples on how we can overcome fear and step out of our comfort zone and grow and do new things. And what struck me the most was how you sort of normalized fear, how you de-dramatized fear. And showed us, how it's just one of those things in life, and we have to walk through that zone of fear to be able to grow. So it's really part of our existence, and I think that de-dramatizes it, and I find that really helpful. So I want to thank you for that. I'm going to put it into practice right away. What I'd really like you in the audience to think about a question that you have for Melanie, because she really is an extraordinary person, not only for her, knowledge about coaching and leadership, but also for her life. She's been in many different countries, working in the field. She's had a career that spans leadership and nursing and international development. And last but not least, she's a mountaineer and, tackling real mountains. And so there's that experience also of being out in the wilderness. And I think she has a lot more to share with us, for more than we have time for. But I'd love to see 1 or 2 questions that you want to ask Melanie about her experience and her knowledge.
What has been the biggest success story I have witnessed on someone moving through the zones? But there's one example which comes to mind immediately. This was a client who worked for most of her life as a secretary. And she always had this fear of not being able to perform well, a very strong self-belief. And eventually, going through the different zones, many practices, it took almost a year of her time. She moved from being a secretary to becoming a director. So I'm not sure I will ever experience an example like that again, but I learned even a lot from her going through those zones. So that was the biggest success story I can share with you.
That's really amazing. Big growth.
Yes, I still get goosebumps when I think about that example. Yeah.
There seems to be such a strong connection between sort of the mindset and the body, and then the sort of the physical aspect of how we may feel in fear, our mindsets, and also the results that we produce. How do you see that in your coaching clients, how do you witness this connection between where they are in their mind and the results that they're producing?
That's a really good question, Saba. So what I often encounter with clients is that confidence, or maybe a low self-confidence, remains mostly in the upper body, so from chest till head. And when I work with those clients, it's really important to connect with the full body and to really understand what stress or what confidence does with our entire body. So going through exercises, for example, what kind of body posture could help you to feel more confident. And I even see it in Zoom coaching sessions, where in the beginning clients would sit a little bit like this, and towards the end it's more like this. So body posture, but also labeling, exactly what you were saying, Saba. So the connection between the mindset and experiencing sensations in the body, there is a very strong connection. And that's, again, also what I was telling about the neural pathways. So if we can change the neural pathways, it will immediately have a positive effect on our body, and vice versa, how we see ourselves, but also how we approach or deal with our environment.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that explanation. Follow-up question to the story that you were telling about your client. And she's asking, she says, that's so nice. And then she wants to know whether you were coaching her throughout that year of transformation.
Yes, exactly. Yes. Yeah. So it really was a 1-year process. So in the beginning, we took small steps regarding time. So it would follow up more quickly. And then as she moved through the zones, the time frame would expand as well. Yeah. So it took about a year. Yeah.
Okay. Then we have another interesting question where she says, is it correct to say that if you're not taking challenges, even small steps, preferring to stay always in your comfort zone, you're not developing, and this is a stagnation or even degradation in any profession? Your thoughts, Melanie?
Yes, that's a really good question. Now, there are two answers to this question. Because if we look at this question from a neuroscientific perspective, if we stay in our comfort zone, that would mean that we as a species would not survive. So indeed, there would be stagnation or degradation. But what means stagnation or degradation? For some people, they are really happy to stay in their comfort zone, doing the same things every day, taking care of the house, the family, and there aren't any changes, and they are really happy with that, which does not mean for them that they are stagnating. So I'm always a little bit careful with answering such questions, but purely from a neuroscientific perspective, it would mean a stagnation if you look at it from a development point of view. Hopefully that answers your question. Depends on your goals in life. Possession, exactly. Yes. And again, that also has to do with your mindset. Yeah, exactly.
I think it's an interesting question also because there is so much pressure for performance in our society now, that sometimes it's excessive. I mean, it's great to grow and develop, but when we're so much under pressure, it can also have a negative impact. So I think I like your wisdom, Melanie, in being very, prudent in the way you assess people's individual growth path, or maybe staying in the comfort zone might be more comfortable for them. That's very, very empathetic on your part, I find.
Yes, that's why it's also so important to remember it's not only about growth, it's also about knowing when to retreat and when to make use of that comfort zone.
And I'd invite people maybe to put in the chat, what is your one takeaway from this session by Melanie?
Thank you, Saba. That's a good one. Be open to anything and don't let fear stop you. Positivity.
It was timely for me, although I'm sorry I missed a bit at the beginning. I definitely think more about all of this. So we'll have a replay on the website, so you'll be able to see the beginning that that you missed. But thanks for that, for sharing your takeaway.
Thank you very much. And I shared the 3 worksheets. Better.
Okay, then we have positivity and better understanding of what makes a growth mindset versus fixed mindset, importance of progressing.
That's also a good point, because especially nowadays, everyone talks about the growth mindset, but what does it mean exactly? It's even more important to know about our fixed mindset and our beliefs and how we go about them, than only talking or working on a growth mindset.
Right.
So really working on that foundation.
As being open to anything, and don't let fear stop you. And this was fabulous. Thank you, Melanie. This was fabulous. And indeed, it has been fabulous. It has been a wonderful sharing experience.
Thank you very much, everyone, also for sharing these takeaways. And so you're getting lots of hearts and clappings and all. So I'm very thrilled. Thank you very much. Okay. Yeah. So Saba, just a question, the worksheets, will the participants and everyone just have access to them somewhere, or? Now everybody who's here can download it, which I am doing immediately also. So make sure you're downloading the slides, the PDF file that Melanie's sharing. And if you want, we can also put it in on the website together with the replay of your webinar. Yeah, we can, we can do anything any of our speakers want, because we're so grateful to all our speakers for giving their time. Remember that these are all volunteers. They're giving their time and expertise to share with you, and we're grateful to all of them. I'm particularly grateful to Melanie today for this topic, which is so dear to my heart, because after all, we coaches, we deal with people, with human beings, and the first concern nowadays is to preserve people's well-being. And this is such a great contribution exactly to that. Workplace has become a dangerous place. People burn out. It's really, there's a high rate of burnout. And so this is a fantastic presentation and learning for all of us. Yeah, and maybe as a last word from my side, I can really recommend you to work on those sheets, to fill out the reflection regarding your comfort zone, and also how you can move through the fear zones, and especially also assessing in what situation you experience a rather fixed mindset as opposed to a growth mindset, because you will experience, once you've gone through those exercises, a new world will open up within yourself and how you view the world around you. So I can really recommend it. And thanks again for joining. Much appreciated. Okay, very well. I've noted who's here, so I'll send you the PDF when we log off. And I wish you a very nice evening, or wherever you are in the world, a very nice afternoon or day, and hope to see you soon at our next session. Thank you, Melanie. Heartfelt thank you. It was really wonderful. Thank you too, and everyone. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.